What's up? How we doing tonight? Who are you, Bunny? We're good. I don't think we've met before. Hello. Oh, Kenzie from the group chat. What's up? I know you. Teach me a new word. Teleology. Teleology. Teleology is the goal of a phenomenon. Cool. Well, thanks for joining. That's fun. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about teleology and subsistence, like I say in the title. Subsistence as a theological goal of a post-industrial economy. We'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about the connection between politics and economy. Everything that I'm pulling from comes from this paper that I wrote, which is available on my website for free. Yeah. I'll wait another minute just for other people to get on. But how are you doing tonight? I'm glad that you joined. We haven't gotten to talk much. Do you know who the I that thinks? I think I know it. Conscious 60 69. I don't know who you are either. Trinity, I don't think we've met. You're by the river. Well, it's cool that you would join a live by the river. I appreciate that. I am doing well. I had a good day gardening. Today and the next couple days, my goal will be to finish the beds that I'll be sowing the pollinator seeds in. So on Monday, I'm having all of my friends and family come over and help me sow these seeds. So like nasturtium and calendula, bee balm, all that kind of stuff. Because I prefer to direct, so I never start anything inside, just kind of on principle, because I'm stubborn. Vegetables, yeah, I will be in a few days before Mother's Day, the 10th. I'll be sowing corned bean squash, peppers, tomatoes. Oh, yeah. These onions that I'm excited about, crystal wax onions. All of this comes from Fedco. They're a summer onion, and they're little, and they're one of those that I want to like pull out of the garden and just eat right then and there, you know what I mean? But what about you guys? Are you planting anything in your gardens? Not quite like cocktail onions. They're about like the size of my fist. They're not like teeny tiny. You don't have a yard. That's too bad. The amount I hear all the time about two things. People without yards. I'm not calling you out, but I'm just saying as a rule of thumb, this is something that I'm noticing, is that people say they don't have a yard, so they never garden. But then I also happen to know a number of public park community garden managers who never have anyone show up. So I'm like, guys, why can't we work together? You plant garlic, what kind of I would be curious what kind of yard or space you have that you use to grow. Do you do like a large patch of them? Because I've seen people do companion planting with garlic, but I know that that's especially tough given the like, I don't know, I guess the nature of the allium, if you know what I mean. It's a repellent, so you wouldn't have it next to like tomatoes or anything like that, I don't think, nor with garlic maybe, or I'm sorry, with lettuce. But actually I changed my mind, because I think they say you can plant it next to lettuce so that you can do like a pest management, I think they say, thus I've heard it said. Check out public park community gardens. There's some in Dayton. There's one in Portland. There's a young woman who I talked to on here named Mur, who manages a community garden in Portland, I think. Well, while I let you guys meditate on that, I'll talk a little bit about political, economic... What was the third one? Hold on. Oh, yeah, okay. The politics, economics, and the state, and the relation between those are the subject of our discussion. So, think, for instance, of the condition of your state. What do you think of when you think of your state? You know, we can do kind of a back and forth here. That'd be fun. We can talk about it. So, for me, when I think of my state, I live in Ohio. I participate in elections in Ohio that also have to do with the federal. So, well, wait, if I live in the state of Ohio, but there's also the American state, it seems like the line between state and not state is kind of blurry. So what I want to do is, I see it like this. I see there's a shelf with like a definition on it, and I'm like a cat who wants to knock it down. I want to say, you know, well, why hold on to the ties we have at all? Not necessarily from a postmodern lens of, well, let's just do away with definitions entirely, but instead what I want to say is this, that there's something that comes from both of those ideas, that come from the idea of America and come from the idea of Ohio, or whatever state you might be living in, or even the city within the state. Think about that. Think about that. Where exactly does it exist? Can you touch it? Can you find it? Can you discern it? Well, it seems like we can discern it, because maybe you vote, maybe I vote sometimes. So we're participating in something that we can't necessarily touch. So there's almost a metaphysical, or a hyperphysical is what I would say, a hyperphysical aspect to the state. So we can boil it down. And that's what I want to do. That's what I do in this paper. That's available on my website for free. The Ghost and Its Struggle, where I discern what the state is and how it transforms as a goal, as a teleology, like I was saying earlier. And that when we do thought experiments like that, what we find is that they have practical effects. So what we find is that trends and fads have to do with resources, which have to do with economics, which have to do with the state, which of course has to do with teleology. So that's the process by which our zeitgeist moves and transforms. Okay, so give that some thought. My garlic plot is basically a repurposed tub. That's awesome. That's cool. I've seen people do pretty creative stuff with what they have access to. In fact, that's an imperative that I often like espouse, is that you have to do the most with what you have. So that's great. That's cool. So meditating on the nature of the state in that way, meditating on the connection between politics and economics and the state and the philosophy of a state is all very much connected. So when we're talking about gardening, and Kenzie, like what you were saying earlier about the fact that you don't have a yard, okay, so that in itself is, to me, we can discern. Let's do that. Let's boil it down. Let's discern that we are acting to something that's not necessarily physical. How can that be unless the metaphysical or the hyperphysical, like what I'm saying, is enmeshed and emanates from and has to do with the transformative nature of our relationship with our environment, with our resources, okay? That's what matters. What you're doing is also so cool. Thank you so much. I think what you're doing is so cool. So, With a broad brush, we're going to do a broad stroke. We'll say, okay, there's a goal, there's a transformation that's occurring within the state. That's every election season. That's what happens. They transform. New people get elected. There's transformation in economics, okay? When I go to the grocery store and I pick up a different brand, that's an economic transformation. I'm casting my vote, my dollar to like company B instead of company A. Okay, and so for the state, there must also be transformations. So the state exists in a weird environment. It doesn't quite exist in the physical, like I keep saying. It doesn't quite exist in the, like hard and mesh world. Yet it has to do with the stuff that is hard. Like the decisions that we make. So all of these things are transforming. All of them have an ultimate teleology. All of them have an ultimate will, an ultimate goal. So it's kind of the point that I'm trying to get across here. So meditate on that. This is a Q&A as well. Throw some stuff out if you have a question, if you have an idea. But let's do an experiment where we talk about the reason why a transformation might occur. So an economic transformation might occur when let's say like a company grants access to a new country, or is granted access to a new country, and that country has a specific product that they sell. Let's say for the sake of convenience, let's say that an American company wants to sell rice, but for some reason or other it's pretty hard to find rice, so they might go to a country like India or a country like China, and they say in an agreement that they will now sell rice in the United States. That is an economic transformation. There was once not rice, and there is now rice. That was a negation that occurred. So there was a thing that existed, and then it was cut so that it now existed in a different form. Okay, what kind of state are you talking about? So that was the meditation earlier, was when we think about state, we have a lot of different things that can come to mind. I live in Ohio. You might live in, I don't know, Idaho or Delaware. But we both live in America, the American state. But also there's like a Western state that exists, if that makes sense. Say like when we say like a Western culture as opposed to an Eastern culture. Okay? So it gets fuzzy. It gets fuzzy. If I got a benefit, if I got a stimulus check like from the city of Dayton, that's where I live, I would get a benefit from the state. So state isn't so much a physical thing I can touch. Like I can touch the soil that belongs to Ohio, but I can't really touch the soil of a state, if that makes sense. State is fuzzy, it's post-physical, it's hyper-physical, if that makes sense. So what kind of state I'm talking about? I'm talking about a hyper-physical, a post-physical, a metaphysical state. No North Africa. I'm not from there, so I can't really say. I don't know. Maybe they think of themselves as a state, like what Gaddafi wanted. Oh, that's a good point. A potential state. That's another example. So a state that wants to exist, a state that has a teleology in mind. So Gaddafi, his goal was he wanted to unite Northern Africa and the Arabic-speaking world in a Pan-African movement. They had the green flag, all that stuff. That was his political ideology. His ideology had a teleology. It had a goal that it was working towards. And in that way, a lot of physical resources were allocated to that prospect. So isn't that so strange that something that doesn't really exist has to use things that do exist to make itself exist? It's weird. It's weird. It's very weird. So changing states requires physical action. A little bit of both. They meet each other in the middle, if that makes sense. That the physical doesn't enact a teleology alone, but it's almost as if the physical is gravitated towards them for them to exist at the same time, if that makes sense. That it's not one imposing a will, it's the physical as an emanation of or in respondent to the post-physical, the hyper-physical. They come together. It's yin and yang. I mean, that's literally all I'm talking about. If you look into the Tao, that's what they're saying, is that the potential meets the active, and then we shoot out like a balloon underwater. You know that thing, like if you take a balloon and you push it underwater and then it shoots back up? And it's kind of like, well, how do you know? What's the wisdom that the balloon has to know? And yet it's so sudden, it's so physical, it's like electric. There's a teleology at work. There's an end goal in mind. So think about this too. People talk about how it's possible that plants also domesticated humans to make them grow. That's what I mean by meeting in the middle. We can't really take one side or the other. We can say that like humans domesticated plants, and we could also say like plants domesticated humans. They meet in the middle, and it shoots out the physical, that which encompasses the physical and the hyperphysical. Okay, so that's the nature of reality. There are two things at work. There's the hyperphysical, and the physical. When they intertwine, when that I mean, think of like a supernova. You know, think of a supernova just enacting its teleology across the universe. That is the course of human history. Okay, I say that 100 times every single live stream. I say the course of human history. The course of human history. Now it's simple. It's very simple. So every time you go to the store and you pick up like a different type of an onion that you might not have had before, like in the thing I was saying about rice. If you go to the store and you find that there's a new product available, something happened. Some strange post-physical thing happened. I mean, really think about it. I'm talking about grocery stores a lot. It sounds a little bit silly. It doesn't sound that serious, but I promise it is. I swear to God it is so serious. Or at least it's sincere. If it's not serious, then it is sincere. We are the middle. Yeah, we're the middle experiencing itself. We are the middle as a means of negation, as a means of understanding the process of gnosis, the process of desire, the process of economy, of politics, of religion. You know, that whole thing. We are in the middle of it. We're in the middle path. We're in the path of no action. We're in the path of cause effect. We're in the path of Brahman, of nirvana, of this and that and the other. You know, so. But do you guys get what I mean when I'm talking about teleology then? You know, whenever I'm talking about the goal of a product is to be sold, the goal of a human is to live, the goal of this hyperphysical thing is to experience, is to meet in the middle and enact its will, right? Or do its best to enact its will. A little bit of both, some yin and some yang, if that makes sense. So we can expand our horizons. We can expand our horizons where teleology is concerned. We can say like, well, in the next 10 years, we might have some really important elections. You know, like we really got to get this guy out of office. We really have to do this. We really have to do that. When we're saying that, whenever we're having a business meeting, whenever we're having a political meeting, whenever we're having a family get-together about what we should go buy from the grocery store, what we're doing is we are having an interface with this hyper physical, this ghost. That's what it is. It's not a physical thing, but it can still haunt people. That's a ghost. That's a ghost. I think in Buddhism they call it a deva. You know, it's not necessarily something that controls, or that's like a physical manifestation or anything, but they exist and they have they have their own desires. So it's almost like we're in the middle between this war of ghosts and this war of like like worldly things. We're right in the middle. Okay? That's how we discern what we are. So that's pretty good. You know, again, if you guys have questions, please, like this is a Q&A for a reason. So let's talk about the course of human history. Now, if you guys went to my website and you saw like this, the newest article that I had posed, you would have seen that agriculture and determinism are interconnected. Determinism, as a philosophical school of thought, it's really very simple, okay? Don't get scared about, like, definitions, because I really cannot be bothered by intense definitions. I really don't care that much about it. But it's important to talk about from the perspective of, like, a practical discussion. Determinism takes the feeling out of physical reality, out of physical change, if that makes sense, of social change. So whenever we have like a sociology, or we have like, a psychology, we want to say like, well, our desire has led us to, a path of sin, or a path of like, what do they call that? Like, rejection or projection, anything like that. What determinism does is it essentially wipes all of that away, and it says that we are molecules that are made out of like rock and stone and elements that are predetermined to have a specific outcome. So, something that we prescribe as much identity to as civilization, applied with a deterministic lens, gives us a different perspective about it. It says that, oh, it was just kind of an outcome, a predictable outcome, that we were zapped with enough radiation, and then in the Younger Dryas period, we were zapped with enough cold that we had to domesticate cereals and legumes. Basically, that it was a predictable outcome with a predictable solution, and that's all it was. It was just, it's chemistry. It's just humans reacting to their environment. That our civilization is nothing but, the outcome of many different elements. So, when I look at agriculture like that, the most useful tool I find is the stripping of the identity. Because when we strip identity away from civilization, what we're left with is the raw effect of our cause. We see what we've done and we say, oh my God, I should not be proud of that at all. In fact, I should be shameful. That's what a lot of people are nervous about now with climate change, is this zeitgeist of our time says that we should be resentful, we should be seeking alternatives for fossil fuels, for billionaires. Those are the types of words you'll hear thrown around. What I do here is I provide an alternative to both of those. We are the awareness which everything appears. I don't think that something happens by coincidence. Even you mentioned in grocery stores a lot. Won't be one watching this live. Definitely not a coincidence. Right? Oh, okay. So I think I had seen that you mentioned that even before I was talking about determinism. But you can apply a deterministic lens and say that, well, the chemistry that led you to wake up this morning necessitated you to click on this live stream or go to the grocery store or whatever. Nothing is a coincidence. Remember, we meet in the middle. We're like the balloon being shot out of the water. When you hug a balloon and then you take it underwater, it has a teleology, it has an imperative, it has a goal to shoot right back up and hit you in the face. That's all it is. That's all it is. There's a lot of value in applying that perspective to civilization, to the conception, to the identity of civilization. That's really what we're talking about here. Okay, I don't really care about the physical stuff. What I care about is the identity of civilization. That's the goal of this paper. Okay? Project Matt, welcome. Welcome if you have questions. This is a Q&A primarily, so let them out. So what we're talking about is that when we strip identity away from civilization, we're left with kind of a cold, callous perspective of our accomplishments or what has occurred. Okay, we poisoned our rivers, we cut down our forests, we let, what do they say about like 90% of species have been influenced in a way that's primarily negative, a negative feedback loop with their ecosystems at least. So let's think about this from the perspective of an economy. I was talking earlier about every decision that we make, every economic and political decision we make is almost predetermined. And when that happens, first of all, that means that it had always been that way. Nothing new changed. There was no change from where we had free will to suddenly now everything's predetermined. Everything either is both. That's what I say. Everything is both. So then when we observe the course of human history, we observe the ups and downs of civilization, because we've had good years and we've had bad years. That's exactly how it works. I was talking earlier about negation. When we apply negation to a teleology, we can say that the course of history, of all predictable histories, must be one moment's interface with its negation. We must... Okay, I'll read some... What do we got? Do I practice a specific religion? I'll talk about religion for a quick second, because if you notice, my account is primarily esoteric. There's a reason for that. That if you let a sleeping bear lie, and it gets up and it enacts its teleology upon its environment, it's going to look a lot different from a bear that's about 3 miles that way, if that makes sense. That's a metaphor. What I'm saying is that I practice a particular religion. If you talk to two Christians, you're going to have two different Christianities. Okay? So it's in their best interest that they have one Christianity, but it's also in the interest of their, well, okay, we'll say teleology, their goal, the goal of their physicality, that there's two. Because we can't share a soul. Unless we all share a soul. Okay? So I practice a specific religion. It's called Aeonism. And the goal is to participate in the divine. Okay? And the fruits that have been born from letting that sleeping bear lie have been very great works. And so I know that it works for me. Okay? We must bear witness to the transmogrification of the pantheological phenomenon that is unfolding before us to reveal unwarranted symbolic epiphanies. Sure. Yeah, we can say that. So, that, for instance, is the engagement with engaging with the negation, right? That we have this thing, they'll say, well, the Catholic Church is domineering, well, the Protestant Church is domineering, well, the Islamic Church is domineering. All we're seeing is the exoteric. We're seeing the result of two people and their one Christianity, right? So this seeking of a global scale towards something more meaningful. Well, I'm not Catholic anymore. I want something more meaningful. I want something that's true. I don't want the dogma. That's the path that everybody that each individual must undertake for themselves. That's the path of the mystic. Okay, and what we realize is that the exoteric is nothing more than the esoteric in action. So, okay, actually, Project Matt, you made a good comment that I want to talk about. So you got to practice them all. So, again, think, for instance, about letting the sleeping bear lie. The only reason why we have as many religions as we do in the world is because we have a globalized economy. Because explorers, adventurers went from Europe into Arabia, went from Europe into North America. The fact that we have a world stage that we now must attend to means that our religious attitudes will affect that as well. So it's very I see people who want to have like a global religion, who want to have a religion that applies to everybody all the time, like Kant's categorical imperative. And I want to say, that's just, it has a 21st century flavor. It has a particular flavor. It has a particular engagement with the negation. So I don't think that's the answer, because that only applies to this zeitgeist. That's why I practice this Aeonism, is because it has to do with the eternality of time. But simultaneously, it acknowledges the exoteric. It says that, well, frankly, we're going to have a political system. Frankly, that political system must engage with the negation. And frankly, that's not always going to be global. We have to have practical answers. Is that spelled A-I-N-O-I-S-M? No, A-E-O-N-I-S-M. You can see it on my website. I talk more about it there. What do I think about Islam? I think it's great. I think it's great for the place that it was born into. I don't think we need United States of Islam. I don't think anything like that. Again, it's like going to Ohio and seeing the native flowers of Ohio and saying, well, they're all well and good. I don't want to put those in Germany because Germany has its own native flowers, if that makes sense. That religion is as related to politics and economics and the determinism thereof as the resources themselves. So, of course, if you go to Arabia in the 6th century AD, you're going to get an Islam. If you go to 21st century America, you're going to get majority Baptist in the South and Catholicism in the Northeast. That's just that's how it goes. It's resources allocating themselves. Do you feel like all esoteric traditions, all of those, are pointing towards the same thing? Absolutely. They absolutely do. Because there's only one truth. There's only one truth, one phenomenon that we all participate in. Am I going to move back to Cincinnati? Good question. I've decided that I'm not. I'm going to stay in Dayton. I had 2 prospects. I had one in Cincinnati and one in Dayton, and I've chosen the Dayton path. So we'll see that it will come to fruition, inshallah. I believe so, Mr. Mike. I think all leads to somewhere. Much more intricacy, the more we pay. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Mike Bond, for sure. Like I was saying, that there is one truth. The truth is like a ball of like mice, we'll say. This is the way that I see it, okay? Because you guys are on my live stream. So, okay, if I took a bunch of mice together and I had them in a cage, I would say, here are the mice. Right? This is the truth. This is the truth that I've observed. I've cobbled all of these little creatures together, and they start to get hungry. And I'm like, well, they can't stay here together for forever. I should let them go. So as soon as I let go of that phenomenon and it goes into action, that is also the truth. But that's also the esotericism. Okay, if that makes sense. Yeah, Mike, we should hang out. Yeah, I think that'd be fun. I'll have my little farm that you guys can come hang out on. I think we'll... What were you saying about Ohio? Okay. Ohio is a state of mass exodus. Good, if you don't want to be here, you can go. But we're going to transform it into something worth fighting for, worth staying for. Have a blessed day, everyone. I hope you all live long, happy life. Thank you. I do. I hope you do. You do too, Matt. I appreciate your time and your comments. Bodil, if that's how you say your name, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out. So, yeah, we were having some good discussion happening. So, like I said, this is primarily a Q&A, so you guys ask questions, but we're talking about the relationship. Let's boil it down to okay, because I like talking about religion, because obviously it's a big part of my life. Let's talk about politics and religion, how they interact, because actually I think that they have a strong interaction. I think that they both have a root. So if we have politics and religion, they have somewhere that they meet in the middle. So let's say this. It has to do with perception. Religion is about perception. Politics are also about perception. In fact, these terms, religion and politics, are 200-year-old words. That's it. They're not very old at all. They were created for the sake of discussion, the sake of participation in a global economy, like I was saying. Who are your favorite philosophers with the canon of mainstream Western philosophy? That's tough. You know, I mean, obviously, like Alan Watts and Carl Jung are pretty well known. They're pretty well known. They are very important. I don't think that they are worth glossing over. I think one of my more favorite, or at least that I want to learn more about, would be Wittgenstein. I forget his first name. I forget it. But Wittgenstein had the consensus that it's impossible to communicate effectively because there's no such thing as a word. It's just a game that we play. Yeah. But don't I think that the truth is mad vague? What you believe, basically. It can be if you make it. It can be if you make it. We'll say that. The truth is what you make it. If I say, for the sake of a metaphor, that I've cobbled together like 12 or 15 mice into a bucket, and I've got them, and I say, this is my truth. These are all the elements of the world. You know, there's fire, earth, sun, moon, Libra, Virgo, whatever. I took all of these elements and I put them into one thing, one pot. And I say, here it is. You know, the mice go hungry. They start to poop on each other, whatever. You know, they're scrambling around in this bowl. Well, what I want to do is I want to set the bucket go. I want to let the mice go. I want to let them be in action, okay? Because you cannot hold on to the truth. If you think you have it, you've been tricked, and the first thing you should do is let it go. What they say about if you meet the Buddha in the streets, you should kill him. And in fact, when God did make himself flesh, the first thing we did was kill him. So, okay. Are you a fan of Terence McKenna? And I don't know the second guy, Robert Wilson. I don't know. Discordianism. Oh, is he Discord? You know, it's one of those things. It's like, I might be a contrarian for the sake of contrarianism. Sometimes I will admit that. It's kind of one of those things of like, you see something enough and then you don't see much else from it other than like memes and stuff, and you're like, I'm not super into it. You know, I like mine better. It does more for me. Discordianism, I see people talk about it online. I've seen nobody in real life be like, I am a Discordian. I'm gonna enact my will on the world and you know, make life better for everyone. I've never seen that. What I have seen is I've seen Aeonites who have gone to the streets and they've said, we're gonna make this world a better place. We're gonna plant these seeds, okay? 'Cause it's me! We're gonna enact our will. We're gonna turn Ohio into a grand meadow of like a high step. We're gonna turn Ohio into a high step. And we're gonna ride on horses and we're gonna stab politicians with spears. Okay, guys, that's the plan. That's Ohio in 2560. Okay. Yeah. Mike, you're right. Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, those guys, right? They're good. They're good at the bottom. You know, when you got to get it by the balls. Okay. Yeah, Discord. It's okay. So here's the thing. They are known by their fruits. If you take nothing else from anything that I ever say, it's that they are known by their fruits. What do the Christians do? What do the Muslims do? What do the Ohioans do? Okay? What do the Aeonites do? Okay? Measure them by what they do. If they have a glorious garden, if they feed the people they love, if they act with compassion towards all beings, if they inherit the world, they are worth agreeing with, okay? I'm not saying agree with me for the sake of my religion as an Aeonite or as my rituals that I perform, you know, anything like that. I'm saying like follow that which wants to be followed. Because that's how we can discern what wants to be followed. That's how we allow the teleology, the goal of the universe, to enact itself, is by agreeing with things that are productive in our time, okay? Isn't Ohio just a big cornfield? Oh, shit, dude, we can talk about that, bro. Because I literally talk about it in my paper that you guys can read for free on my website. For free, guys, okay? Because I'm never going to charge money for reading anything that I write, because that's against the teleology of our zeitgeist, okay? We want to open up the gates. We want to open up the times. Let people in, feed people, so that then we can actually turn Ohio into the steppe. Because the people who don't want Ohio to be the steppe are the people who want to compartmentalize. They want to keep the cornfields private property and say, oh, we have to send all of the soybeans we produce to Japan for a very special reason. Okay, so this is my paper, The Ghost and Its Struggle. Okay, and we can talk about how compartmentalization has to do with Ohio being a cornfield. Okay? It's towards the end. It's when I'm talking about exploitation and the means of compartmentalization as a process of surplus energy. Okay? Okay. Let's see if I can find it really, really fast. If I can't, then we'll talk about something else. But that's just funny that you said that. So my sun sign, I'm a Libra. I'm a Libra, Sun, Virgo, Moon, and Sagittarius rising. Okay. Okay, oh yeah, here we go. Okay. So what I do in this paper is I specifically acknowledge the zeitgeist that we live in, okay? There's like, this is the 21st century, right? This is actually me talking on a live stream is a good example of the 21st century zeitgeist, okay? The goal of this paper is to hold that in a hand and then provide a negation, okay? Like a balance, like a scale, okay? So what do we have, and then what is that which is not what we have? So let me use this negation as a lens to look at what we do have, okay? So oh, dude, this is hilarious. Okay. If you're talking about Ohio, you can't not talk about the corn, right? So what I will do, this is paragraph 12 of The Ghost and Its Struggle. You guys can read that for free on my website, okay? It's the very first PDF. Literally, if you click the link that's in my website, it's the Google Sites, it'll say the Aeon of Eternity is at hand. You know, it's my big, like, my big thesis, and then you scroll down, the Aeonite Abbey Agricultural Project, all that stuff. It's literally, it's the first one. It has the bird on it. It has the grouse. Because we're pursuing a grouse economy. A grouse-like economy, okay, guys? A foraging economy, right? It looks like that. Just go read it. Paragraph 12. I'll just go ahead and read it for the sake of elaborating on the context of what I'm talking about. The relationship between politics, economics, compartmentalization, exploitation, all this stuff. I cover a lot in this little paper, okay? Having outlined the lens I'm using to understand history, I will elaborate on this type of subsistence state that I have implied. The title of the live stream. Subsistence state that I have implied. Remember the negation, okay? I will not play prophecy and make guesses on what life might be like in a few hundred years. Actually, I do. It's the Ohio High Step, okay? Rather, I will show how exactly the previously established method of historical analysis can be used to derive the problems or economic strains and means of decay that affect us at present, and what our best interest is at present that I will define as a period in the future. I've already hinted at a major problem previously. Our means of subsistence is greatly removed from our immediacy, meaning that if any sort of economic stressor were to occur, it is very likely that large demographics of the population's subsistence will be compromised. What did I say? We take all of the corn that we grow in Ohio and we send it to Japan or whatever they do. That they turn it into corn syrup. They turn it into Doritos that are being sold in like Massachusetts, okay? Our subsistence is removed from our immediacy, okay? By means of subsistence, I mean things like food, water, electricity, and other elements within our period specifically that are uncompromisingly necessary to our survival. Each of these are, in our period, very complex resources, meaning that it requires very great time, effort, and resources for them to be created. Think of the big tractors that it takes to manage all the thousands of acres that make corn in Ohio, okay? It should surprise no one to see that on any drive throughout the Midwest, one can come to expect to see hundreds and hundreds of acres off any highway farming corn, and one specific type of corn at that. This is what I mean by compartmentalized, that enough resources like steel, gas, oil, electronics have all gone into the tools used to till, fertilize, harvest, and transport the thousands of pounds of corn, that it is in fact in the best interest of the states of our period that land be used this way. So the compartmentalization is like the gas in a car, okay? Like if I want my car to go to a specific destination, it needs a specific amount of gas. So we have to compartmentalize the resources we have access to in order to sustain the teleology, the goal of our political state, okay? Okay? However, trouble arises when those elements are observed in action. For example, modern tractor farming, or what many may call a monoculture style of farming, is great at producing yield because that is what is prioritized by the political system of our state. Remember, I was just saying the teleology of our state, okay? Our political state does not yet account for the sterilization of ground soil, an unintended consequence of monoculture farming, in which a resource like a living, healthy soil that feeds crops is turned into lifeless dust because resources were not allocated back into the soil to feed that life. The negation makes itself clear. The negation begs itself to exist. So this subsistence state, this state that wants to exist, this state in which the grouse can prosper and grow, that the Ohio steppe can come about, only comes about by means of engaging with the negation. That we have our political state here, it's going to crumble down and become that. Okay? Oh man, we've got a lot of talk here. Okay. Are Libras about justice? Well, you tell me, brother. Libraries are about community and more seen as socially trusted. Libras, yes. I affirm. A sun sign is your main sign. Sure, yes. Yeah. Leo, I don't know the dates of astrology. I'll let you guys handle that, okay? That sounds like how in Australia our government sells off our oil and gas for dirt cheap. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a great example. That's insightful. That's absolutely true. The fact that farmers go hungry, the fact that farmers need 2, 3, 4 jobs. Guys, what are we doing? Well, actually, we're reacting to the previous zeitgeist of our time, okay, with the means of engaging with the negation, okay? But think about the future. Just ponder about the future, guys. Let's all sit around and do like a seance where we can manifest and use our louche to like create and manifest the Ohio High Step, okay? Can we do that? Every Friday, we're going to go live and we're going to siphon our energy into the Ohio Step. Okay, so people, same thing, ego and personality. Okay, so we're getting some astrology in chat. Signs can clash. I was just watching Dr. Segru's lecture on St. Augustine, and St. Augustine came to the conclusion that astrology was not worth investing in because, keep in mind, astrology used to be like a what they call in German a Wissenschaft. It was like a body of knowledge that was very serious in ancient times. So St. Augustine was brought into the world where astrology was a serious science. So when he was creating his Socratic dialects to help him write his Confessions book, one of the points that he makes, according to Dr. Segru, is that astrology is not worth investing the time we do, only because this was the example they gave, is that a student is born into a wealthy family on, let's say, like the 11th of August, because we were saying that. Now, his wealthy family also has a slave, and that slave was pregnant and gave birth also on the 11th of August. So despite the fact that they were born on the same day, they had very different lives ahead of them, right? Now, I don't know astrology that well. I don't know if that's true, but that happened to hit home with me because it was simple enough for me to say, like, okay, there's something, let's put astrology on the back burner, if that makes sense. Let's put astrology in the realm of like after we feed ourselves, we can focus on astrology. But for now, I think we frankly, like, we just have bigger fish to fry. Like, it's fun. Like while we're farming, guys, while we're weeding our corn or whatever we're doing, I think we can talk about astrology. Okay. Astrology has faced the same fate as witchcraft. Witchcraft is a little bit different. So, okay, let's talk about like Gardnerian stuff. We can talk about Western esotericism, actually. That could be fun. What time is it? Oh, that's crazy, dude. Okay. It's got pretty late. So, the revival of witchcraft that comes from like Gardnerian Wicca is, well, again, let's apply what we've talked about, okay? So there was a zeitgeist, right? There was a zeitgeist where witchcraft and astrology were like, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, don't do that. So then what's the negation? Do that, do that, do that, do that. So, okay, that's how we can measure and we can say it's going to happen again. We're going to get a revival of Western esotericism in the future, right? There's a time of like, excuse me, of like political, religious conservatism. So, of course, when that came to pass, the very first thing everybody did was create new religions. They said, we want this, we want that. Let's create Methodism. Let's create, and then 100 years later, they created Wicca. So it's no surprise. It's no surprise. So actually, I think that there could be, like, how do you explain that shit, bro? Okay. if we lump all of that together as a desire, we can wrap all that stuff up. We can say like there is and isn't a desire to have like a witchcraft and an astrology. Okay? We could use a visual aid, but that might be a bit much. Okay. That the desires themselves make up a zeitgeist, a bigger zeitgeist that like the palm of my hand here. Like these are two zeitgeists, but this is one zeitgeist. Well, I'll hold up another hand and I'll say there's the desire and the undesire to have a witchcraft and an astrology thing. And then I'll say there's a secret third thing. There's a thing that's like not, because it's not anti-astrology, it's not anti-witchcraft, but it's kind of like indifferent. It's kind of like non-dualism isn't like anti-dualism. It's just not. It doesn't care. It wants to put that stuff on the back burner. So I would say this is what we will graduate into after this next like big zeitgeist. Like think about Aleister Crowley and his whole thing about like the Aeon of Horus, right? Is that he wants to divide time up into a lot of little different things. Okay, he wants to say, well, there was an Aeon of guys, help me out here. Okay, what does he say? The Aeon of Isis. The Aeon of Isis led to the Aeon of what? Shit, I forget. The patriarchy. Who's the patriarch of Egypt? Whatever. I don't know. Okay. There's Isis, there's the matriarchy, then there was the patriarchy, then there's the Aeon of Horus. Now we're in the Aeon of like freedom and solidarity and everybody can do what they will. Let's think about that politically. So what happened? The Aeon of Ra, maybe? I don't know. I think it was... Maybe. It could have been. I guess I don't know that much about Thelema. Hold me accountable. But that we can see in that little zeitgeist, in that little chart that he made, was that also happens to track with humans' progress. That suddenly there was a globalized economy where everything became arbitrary, just like what I was saying earlier. I just saw that in the comments here, someone else bringing up, Conscious saying that physical actions, that the ghosts kind of beckon the physical to act. So what I want to do is I want to take that chart that they're making, saying like, oh, well, we should pay attention to all the tiny little different things. Let's pay attention to all the arbitrarities of the tiny little things. And I want to say I don't really care. I don't really care about that. In fact, what I care about are the subsistence of my friends, of my family, of my children when I have them. That's what I care about. I want to get back to basics. Witchcraft feels like a combination of manifestation and ritual to get the results of your life that you're already working on, same as praying. Yeah, like that. So that's an exoteric thing. I define it like this. I'll use my hands again because I find that they're useful metaphors. So if we have like me and money that are not connected, if I want money, that's only because I'm not paying attention to the fact that they're already connected down here in the mystical realm. Or in the divine realm, the ghostly realm. They already are. The fact that I'm praying for money means that there's an illusion, that there's an illness, a spiritual illness happening. Okay, that's my thing. Okay, what else do we got? I missed a lot. You guys are good. We're very active. That's awesome. I'm glad. Okay. MBTI personalities, same kind of thing. It's like, I'm here and you're there. They are useful. Because actually, okay, let's talk about practicality again. I get hungry, so I have to go get, I don't know, ramen noodles. Okay? I'm hungry, so I have to go get ramen noodles. That is solved. That is solved in the realm of the divine, and the experience of actually both of these things. Because there's one that is two, that is three, if that makes sense. That's how, call me a heretic, whatever. Like I said, I couldn't be Christian because I would fight too much with them. I can't be Islam because, I eat pork sometimes. I can't be a Seventh-day Adventist because I have a brain, okay? I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Witchcraft is a fake tradition. Yes and no. I think yes and no. Like, again, like, it's kind of hard to make a generalization like that. Witchcraft is a manifestation method. Yes and no, sort of. Like, yes. Like, it's physical. Because it's physical stuff that's physically happening. So actually, like, okay, like, I can't shit on anybody because it's physically happening. And I can't make a moral judgment because that's a spiritual illness. I can't. I could not in good faith preach something like that. Do I practice fasting at all? Actually, I do. I practice fasting for religious reasons, and I also practice fasting for health reasons. Yeah. Yep. So, we're opening a lot of cans of worms, okay, guys? This is dangerous. I think it's a distraction. Like, if you're in your car going to a destination, you're doing some jack jumps in the backseat. Oh, okay. Conscious, you're opening another can of worms. Okay. Because yes and no. What you just brought up is the difference between free will and predetermination. Okay, so yes, the car in your metaphor is the predetermination because you're on a path, right? And you're choosing to do, I don't know what jack jumps are, if you're talking about the thing where you go like that or whatever. But my appeal to that argument, Conscious, you can fight, we can do a dialectic, okay? Because I could be wrong, but I haven't been proven wrong yet. Okay, the way that I think about that is like this. You praying, the fact that it's physically happening, again, because there are ghosts at work, the fact that it can physically happen means that it's necessary to happen. That's the deal about non-dualism. Everything is empty. The Tao, chapter 5, where it teaches us that we're actually straw dogs, and that all of the sages should treat the common people like they are straw dogs. Everything is empty. We are all puppets of ghosts, okay? So the fact that it is physically happening, that we should come to pass, to pray and to manifest, means that there's something that is like begging for our attention, that we should pay attention to, okay? Do you think you need to create changes in your consciousness before ritual acts will have an actual effect? I think that, okay, so yeah, I can show you guys my process in real time, okay? So I see a question like that, and the first thing I want to do is I want to strip the identity from it. I want to say, do you think you need to create changes in your consciousness? I say, what does happen? What physically happens? Consciousness is changed. That's a thing that happens in the world. Consciousness changes, okay? Rituals are created. That's a thing that happens in the world, okay? So what is the relationship between those two? Okay? The effect is predetermined. We'll just stick that there. And we'll say that when these two interact, this happens. It's like a process. It's like a snake that eats its own tail. That's our Ouroboros, okay? So if you're asking me if I think they need to change consciousness, I would say yes for the sake of giving a practical answer, but I would also say, like, it's okay that it's more complicated than that. But the fact that it's complicated is because it's actually less complicated. It's like having the mice of truth stuck in a bucket and you have to let the bucket go, okay? So do you think that everything is predetermined? Yes and no. I think it's both. I think it's a false question that was created to make people like us confused and scared. There is one process. That process is empty. It's the space between my fingers, okay? I have two fingers, right? But there is space here that's empty, right? The process of experience is simultaneously free and determined. It is determined to be free and it is free to be determined, okay? Both. It's non-dual. Please, if you guys don't read my stuff, that's totally fine. Please read the Tao Te Ching. Please read the Tao. The Tao Te Ching. Please read it. We can read it because we live in a global zeitgeist, okay? We can read that book. We have access to their teachings because we live in a globalized free economic world. That's a positive thing about the globalized economy. There are many bad things about it. That's one of the good things. That's one of the necessary things. If you read that, you will learn a lot. You can read it in an afternoon, or you could read it over a year, right? It's one of those books. Okay? It's just like mystical Christianity, right? Because they're all gesturing. It's all one process. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. It doesn't matter if you're even on Earth. You can be on Venus and you're still engaging with the mystical, right? Non-duality of consciousness. Yeah, that's right. It's like, is it all consciousness, or is none of it consciousness? Both are true, because if everything is consciousness, there's nothing to differentiate between a consciousness and an unconsciousness. So then it's like, well, I can't really say it's conscious because there's no unconscious. You know, there's no negation to identify it with, because that's how we define things, is what is and what is not. That comes from Hegel, okay? Well, it doesn't come from Hegel, but it is exemplified by Hegel in our zeitgeist. Oh, man. My back is sore. But this is very fun. Thank you guys for participating. God bless you all. Okay. Do you have any more questions? Yeah, we could, I'm trying to think what else we got. So, like, right. You know, like, when I have my Instagram page, it is so difficult for me to reach the right audience, because I think I have my fingers in too many pies. You guys know what I mean? Like, I want political change. I want to politically turn Ohio into the high step, right? But I also want to have a religion that follows it, most practically, right? That would come out of Ohio, you know? So it's like esotericism and politics and gardening. It's a lot to ask of people, because I think that those two beget the gardening. That's just the answer to what we have to do. Did I say we live in a pre-economic world? I don't know if I said that. I might have been talking about the stage of economy that we're in, which we would call a post-industrial commercialized economy. What are your thoughts on pre-transient states and astral projection type practices? So it all has to do with identity. That you can only astral project if you have an identity that you can astral project. And you can only, I don't know, like the pre-transient, maybe that's like a similar genre. You can only do those things if you have something that can go do that. My answer, not that you asked a question, but I would say, like, you can do that if you're up here. There is a method to do things up here that is practical and healthy, but there's also a way to do things up here that is unhealthy, that is pathological. Right? So that's where Dharma comes into play. Our understanding of where the world is and where it wants to go has to do a lot with Dharma. What do I think about fascism? That's a tricky question, because I want to say a lot about it, but I think it's more useful if I only say a little bit. It's kind of like, it makes sense for its time. Fascism made sense for a early 20th century Italy. How do I know that? Because it happened. It physically happened, and it came to pass that people got together and said, let's do fascism. Okay? That's all I can say about it. From a dharmic perspective, I'd be lying if I said anything else. Do I personally agree with it? Absolutely not. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for 21st century Ohio. Okay? What I think makes sense for 21st century Ohio is a transition into a subsistence state that will then have to beget the grouse economy, that will then beget the Aonite step. Okay? That's what I believe. Honestly. Have I done any research on the Gateway tapes? That sounds like Heaven's Gate. I don't think that's what that is. That's what my brain filled in. But I think that oh god. This is my most controversial opinion, is that the Heaven's Gate guys are really cool. I think that, okay, I'm looking at them optimistically. I'm saying that they knew what was gonna happen, and they chose to do it, you know? And I think that's a beautiful thing. Is it possible to be a Christ consciousness forever? Brother, we always have been. Amen. Hallelujah. Go to the Methodist church that is near you, because Methodism is the answer. Right, guys? The commitment they had in Heaven's Gate was wild. It's perfect. It's perfect. Imagine being that alive, that you would lay your life down for something. Well, they didn't see it that way. They let their vessels down to pursue heaven. You guys have to understand, Asian dudes and girls have been doing that for 3,000 years. But when a bunch of crackers get together in like Nevada and they do it, then it's like, no, you can't do that. No, you guys have to pay taxes and have mortgages. It's like, actually, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't. Okay. Who do we have in chat? Oh, I lost a lot of watchers from saying that, dude. That's I know, it's controversial. Okay. What about nationalism? Okay. For example, believing that each should keep the race that God gave them. Okay, so you bring up another good point. So I think that there's a pathology that happens in nationalism where people falsely attribute. Okay, when I'm doing this, I hope you guys understand. I'm saying that there's a me and there's something that's not me, right? There's a subject and an antithesis, right? So like what, for your example, you're talking about nationalism. Okay, so what about nationalism? Right, there's my nation and then there's everybody else's nation. I like this one, so this one's bad. So like, you can get lost in samsara if you're doing that. But again, see what happens. Watch what happens when a group of people. Okay, I have a lot of hear me outs here, guys, so thank you to everybody who has stayed, because you are genuinely open-minded. I appreciate that. What happens if you take any group of people and you put them in a bucket and you dump that bucket onto an island? They're going to have their own nation. They're going to have their own bloodline in about like 4 centuries, maybe. I don't know. So it only makes sense that nationalism would have held so long as there was an imperative of isolation. Okay, but what happened was, historically, I will say this definitively because it's to my discernment it's true, is that there was an inherent unconscious nationalism that every nation of people had that had to be negated by the globalized economy. The globalized economy is the biggest enemy of nationalism. You cannot have both. That's why conservatism is so je ne sais pas, like retarded. Like you're okay, I'm sorry. Like a conservative person who wants to have a globalized economy but also have their like white America, like I want my suburbs to be this and that. You cannot have both. It is a negation of those principles. That's how time works, dude. I'm sorry. So if we're talking about God begetting nations, that's absolutely true. That was true for millennia. Okay, but then it came to pass. Again, see what happens. Humans are self-centered and think their thing will always be better thing compared to other people. That is true. That's true. I mean, that's just going to happen. I think that is a tool. That self-centeredness is a tool that the ghosts up here use as like to pull strings to make stuff happen down here in the world, you know? I think it's okay that happens. I think that's how every innovation that's ever been made will happen. I think that's how the course of human history was determined by these very big, very like, think of like, you know, the edit that I made a while ago where I was trying to like give the point across is like, whenever we have a tornado that hits, like Oklahoma or something, there's a tiny little tornado. And when you zoom out, no matter how big the tornado looks, you can have a tornado that absorbs the whole horizon, right? You can have a tornado that is like, oh, it's like we're gonna get slabbed, we're gonna, you know, like the world, this city in Oklahoma is gonna be gone. It can be that big. But if you zoom out, understand, guys, when you see a tornado, it might be like a mile wide, which is a lot. That's a big tornado. It could be, I think, like 2 miles tall. No, that doesn't make sense. That might not be true. Anyway, the clouds that have to be generating to make a tornado are monstrably huge. We're talking about like a dozen miles. I forget it, but it's it makes the tornado look small. That's the point I'm trying to give across, is that what we think of the tornado, the actual tornado is more like the exhaust of a car, and that the engine is this gigantic, I mean, please look it up in your spare time. Like, you can leave this live stream and go look it up. Please do that. Look up how big a mesocyclone is. You know, the whirling of an engine in the sky. I mean, what? Like, it's absurd. And then it makes this little, like, tiny, like, so it's like a drill. The sky becomes a drill that enacts its will upon Oklahoma every single year. That's so fucking crazy. Okay, but do you think that self-centeredism should be a problem? I mean, it's always you when it comes to comparison. That's your ego talking. It's a problem when it becomes a problem, you know? If you watch two molecules, like do this thing like with discernment, where like you strip away the identity, right? You strip away the ego and you watch these physical things interact with each other. Like when we watch molecules interact under a microscope, and you have one that's like coming along and the other one wants to bond to it. It has to go like before it latches on, you know, or like cellular life, you know, it's the exact same thing. Each of those guys have an ego, they have an imperative, they have a teleology, but they have to, one of them has to shake and they have to have a process before they can interact with each other, before they eat one another, before they bond into a new molecule. So it's the same with us, where it only becomes a problem. We only, self-centeredness only becomes a problem when it rubs wrong with other people, right? That's how we define things, is like we don't even think that we're going up until we start to go down, right? It's like, oh, I didn't know that I had it so good until it started being really bad. Well, that's just how perception works. So from a dharmic perspective, I would say we should cultivate virtue. That's something that everybody should do all the time. That is my categorical imperative, is to say that that's something that everybody can do all the time forever, is generate virtue. Now, what will happen is I'll be compassionate to like my family for a long time, and then I'll go out into the world and then I'll rub up against people and I'll be like, oh man, this is really hard. It's really hard to cultivate virtue. Until it becomes easy. Does that make sense? It's like, it's a process that changes. There's no like one way to cultivate virtue. Virtue, of course, comes from the three treasures, which are humility, frugality, and compassion. Have you ever experienced identity strip? I don't know how to say that. Well, yes. But it's also a tool that we can apply to everything. But to experience it yourself is its own thing. Most people at some point in their life will engage in the mystical experience. It's a repeatable, identifiable phenomenon that has been studied for now, maybe we'll say like 2 centuries, but is recorded as occurring since humans have recorded anything. That's how every religion starts. That's how every coming of age in an individual happens. Most people have that happen. The difference is we don't often hold on to it. We let it come to pass, which actually is a good thing, I would say. For some people it happens more than others. I've noticed that I have a hard time talking with someone who might have let it gone because it happens to me so often. So it's not so much, it's a trait. I don't know. Yeah, it happens. Yes, I have. I did. The first time I understood that I was engaging in the mystical experience was in 6th grade. And even before that, I kind of had my teleology in mind, so I ascribe that a lot to like my karma, my past life, if you want to go down that school of thought. Is like I was here, I was ready to turn Ohio into this step. Okay, this is my life's goal. You guys are witnessing it in 4K. Crazy. You guys got to understand, like when I log off here, like I don't stop talking about any of this. Like I have these, you know, the flags in my room. I mean, these are the flags that will fly if I have my way. You know, my friends and I who get together and we perform our vigils our ceremonies, our celebrations. This is my lifestyle. This is why I'm moving onto this farm, is so I can cultivate this garden, the subsistence state, because it's the only thing to do. You have to observe it through the negation and say, how can I achieve that? Okay? And it's the same to you guys. I would say that the best thing we can do for each other is to make it easier for us to do what we are willed to do, our own teleology. It's amazing that some people can see life and things as they are instead of seeing things through themselves. Yes, that's true. For mystical people, it can be hard to identify with what they call the Hylics, people who don't have that inclination. But ultimately, having the identity strip, you realize there's no differentiation regardless. I think that's the only thing that makes us different, seeing things from different. Absolutely, and that's not to say that one's more important than the other. I don't mean to moral fact, but the shoemaker will make the shoes and the priest will preach, right? They need each other. It's not like one is more important than the other. That's the fault, is saying oh, well, I actually need shoes, I don't need religion. Or oh, religion's the only thing that we should focus on. It's both. It's politics and it's religion, okay? It's our relationship to our resources, okay? So yes, that is to say, it's I'm a hypocrite when I say it, but there's nothing we can criticize. There's nothing we can criticize. We can't say any criticism of anything that happens in the world. And even me saying that to myself, you guys see, it's sort of it shifts, and then it becomes oh, well, what about me? And then you sit in silence and you're well, what do I do now? It's oh, that's the point. Now I get to go do my teleology. Word, brother. Amen. We have a different crowd than we did at the start of the video. So I'm curious, are you guys gardening this year? Do you guys have vegetables or anything particularly that you're growing? Or have you, if you don't have your own yard to garden, have you connected with your local community garden? This is like church for me, for real. That's what I'm saying. Amen. That the thing that's worth preaching is always in the little things, always in the teeny tiny little live streams and stuff with 5 viewers on it. Oh God. I have crazy back pain. That's what I'm like. Well, there might be a lag because I'm not seeing anybody talking about plants that they're growing. But if we don't have any comments, I'll walk you guys through mine. Oh, milkweed, bro. That's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, now's a good time to do that too, depending on your growing zone. Depending on your growing zone. I'm in 6A, or maybe 6B now that they might have adjusted it for climate change. Oh, man. But, yeah, now's a good time for milkweed. If you guys don't know, you should consider native pollinators for your garden, if you have not gone down the alternative agriculture route. Me, personally, because you guys were so inquisitive, I have a few. So Fedco Seeds, who I get mine from, they happen to have a bundle of pollinators. So I got a few. And I'm having my family over this Monday to plant them in my little... Oh, I'll post those to my stories. I built these little beds for pollinators to sprinkle these seeds in. I forgot to make a post about that. Xerxes Society has a whole map by states with all the types you can plant for monarchs. That's pretty cool. That is cool. That is worth paying attention to. That's the stuff that's really worth paying attention to, because that's very physical. It's physical in a way that's not even human, which I think is why I'm so drawn to it, you know? Like, I don't think I could have gone to school for politics. I think I would have gone to school for like agriculture, which I kind of did. I never went to college. I don't have any student debt. I am thankful every day for not having any student debt. But I went to a permaculture design course put on by the Cincinnati Permaculture Institute, and those guys are the real deal. That was a lot of fun. That is like the highest certification I've ever gotten. It opened all the doors for me for all of regenerative agriculture, and I am now a player in the lineage of alternative agriculture, going back to Rudolf Steiner, which is very cool, which is a lot of fun. It's you know, it's humbling, but it's also something I'm proud of. You know, it's very cool. I think everybody here would be better off doing research into permaculture. It is very cool. I have a YouTube channel. I have one. It's on, what's the easiest way to get to it? If you go to my website, okay, where do I have it now? Oh, it's the first button. If you go to my website, scroll down to the headline, and then past it, there's a button that says new YouTube video. That's the last live stream I made. That, guys, okay, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but please, that is the most, like, comprehensive analysis I have done of the Ghost and its struggle. It was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. It was pretty good. It was a live stream on Instagram that I saved and uploaded, so I would suggest checking that out. And then I have other videos up there too. I talk a lot about GAIS. I have a few, I think I have a podcast episode up. I have like an introduction into like Aeonism, all of that stuff. Horticulture people are for real the coolest and best teachers. Yes, I second that. I totally agree. Again, I think it's because it's like they don't deny the human part. They have a lot of anxiety about humans. They have a pretty like fatalist perspective about like the human race. But what I prefer is their emphasis on the unhuman, on the connectedness of nature. I lived in the Enright Ridge Urban Eco Village for a year and a half, almost 2 years. It's an eco commune in Cincinnati that was very like coming of age. What's that word? Like very maturing for me. That was a lot of fun. And again, I mean, seriously, like this, it's talk about teleology, right? The fact that when I was a kid and I was so resentful that I would have to have a mortgage, that I would have to go to college, that I have to do these things, learning that there's a whole community of people out there already doing what I wanted to do. I didn't have to go to college. I don't have to have a mortgage. I have a stewardship contract with this farm in Dayton. I get to go in and plant, you know, all this crazy stuff, you know? It's an opportunity that presented itself, again, a physical one, but think about the ghosts up here, okay, that beckon these transitions to happen, right? All of these little projects propping up over time, they'll grow into big movements, I like to think, which is why I emphasize so often the idea of family. That family is going to be big. Family is what defines a parallel society. Family is what defines a voting bloc or an economic sector, okay? It's going to be a big component in the human population in the next, like, we'll just say 500 years. That the people who have connections like a family now are the people who will go on, their bloodline will go on to inherit the next zeitgeist. I'm not going to say inherit the world. I specifically mean zeitgeist there. Well, what other questions do we have, folks? What else is on our mind? Cheers. Good live stream. What other random stuff do we have going on? We don't have to be serious. We're talking about lots of heavy stuff. This is a corn that I planted last year. It's Hopi blue corn. I was going to get more, but Fedco was out of them. So I ended up getting Montano Murado. They're very similar. They're both heritage grains, which means that they've been cultivated for in an unbroken chain for a long time. So these are native to very hot growing zones, which is good because Ohio is predicted to have an extremely dry year this year. In those corn, and I mean literally in those corn, like I'll have my corn patch. In that same patch, I will have scarlet runner beans that grow. And the beans fix nitrogen with their mycorrhizal environment that they have with microbial exudates. They feed sugar to specific bacteria, who then, when the bacteria die, they decompose bioavailable nitrogen into the soil that the corn sucks up like water. The corn loves it. The corn loves that stuff, which is why nitrogen fixers are so important to alternative agriculture. Because we are not feeding nitrogen back into the soil. We sprinkle fertilizer on. We think that's doing the job, but it's like a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. What are your thoughts on psychedelics? I've never done one. I've never touched a psychedelic. I'm at my parents' house, so I won't say it too loud, but I've smoked pot before. And it was okay. It was all right. I used to do it a lot just because it's something to do. I prefer just a, Miller Lite. I'm more of a beer guy than a mushrooms guy, frankly. I'd like to try them. I think that there's a reason why the floodgates were opened with LSD, that millions of people had mystical experiences, and what did we get from it? We got advanced capitalism. Right? We don't necessarily have to have mystical experiences for the world to become better. We don't have to. That doesn't matter. Again, there are higher powers at play. It's not just about us having our mystical experiences down here. Okay? I'll tell you what, we're probably going to call it here in a couple minutes because my back is killing me. It's also not addictive. I think that civilization is addictive. Civilization is an addiction that we have to be clean of. Right? Because you're only strung out as long as your supplier's around. Right? What happens when your supplier goes away? When the supply dries up, right? And you're left there and you're itching, you're like, oh my god, I need an Instagram reel. Oh my god, I could really go for some Uber Eats right now. Right? That's an addiction. And we have to be clean of it. In fact, well, okay, here's my point. Negation, we will become clean of it. We will have to. It's just an imperative. It's going to happen someday, guys. This thing that we call civilization, it's just a global economy. It's just a phase of the economy. It'll change. So as far as addictions go, it's like, well, again, we can be addicted to crack, we can be addicted to heroin and all these stuff. Frankly, we have bigger fish to fry, right? We should take care of those people. We should have unending compassion for those people. We should bring them into our homes and give them hot food. But frankly, there's a bigger addiction that a lot of us have now. There's something going on outside. I'll get those itch. Oh, the itches to watch my videos. Yeah, right. I'm your supplier, guys. Yeah. Oh no, I'm doing it. I'm forwarding the issue. This isn't good. Oh, man. Is it 11 now? That's too bad. Well, this was fun. This was a blast like always. Thank you so much, guys. I'll upload this to my YouTube channel. I'd like to keep it. So well, I should have said this at the beginning, but the whole point of this project, of being online, of talking about stuff, is to get like a time capsule of our zeitgeist. That's the point. I want to record our conversations. I want to record like my perspectives on things. I want to talk about like the problems that the 21st century faces, so that when these are discovered in like 600 years, they'll be like, oh, I have a pretty good consensus about what this guy was about and what his contemporaries were about, because that's what we are. I want to talk to you guys. We are contemporaries. We have similar perspectives. We have similar like responses to issues that we face. We should be collaborating. We should be gardening together. We should be gardening apart from each other. I should have mine, and you should start yours. You should bring people into your fold. You should tell them about this the eternality of this most highest aeon. Let's stop messing around about these ones that only last a couple thousand years, guys. We're worried about the aeon of Isis in the big 2026, guys. Let's think of the eternal one, of this eternal process and the priesthood that it begets, okay? Okay? Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you so much. This is really great. Great stuff. So that being said, it's like when I turn these cameras off, I'm going to go to bed, you know, that kind of stuff. Actually, I'll probably go grab some more popcorn. That sounds good. But, you know, right. We'll wake up. You and I will wake up tomorrow. And we will have our flags, we'll have our altar space, all that stuff that we will pray at, and we will beget this subsequent subsistence state. We'll call it that. We'll be ready when it comes. We'll be ready when it comes. And we will earnestly march into the future. Right? Because what's a better human than that? It doesn't matter what life throws at us. We will march forward into the future, even if it means relinquishing everything. That's what every priesthood throughout history has done. They say, sell your belongings and walk with me. That's what the future is asking of us. That's what this strange, ghostly business is about. Okay, sell your stuff and walk with me. Anyway. God bless all of you. I'm very thankful for each and every one of you. I'm excited to talk more with each and every one of you and to learn more about you and your situations and your circumstances and stuff. As always, thank you for watching, and good night.